Saturn, grant us the serenity to know the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And so it is. It's the day and hour of Mars. I'm Reverend Devin Malone, and you're listening to Selene's Gateway, Morning Edition. Just on the heels of the perfection of the Saturn and Sun conjunction, Helios is at 4 degrees and 48 minutes of Aries, with Saturn at 4 degrees and 45 minutes of Aries. Selene is at 0 degrees and 18 minutes of Cancer, and the ascendant is at 7 degrees and 46 minutes of Aries. The chart is cast for Washington, D.C. We will start today with less preamble and move straight into the Orphic Hymn to Mars, with the translation provided by theoi.com. This is hymn number 64, to Ares, or Mars. Magnanimous, unconquered, boisterous Mars, in darts rejoicing and in bloody wars, fierce and untamed, whose mighty power can make the strongest walls from their foundations shake, mortal destroying king defied with gore, pleased with war's dreadful and tumultuous roar. The human blood and swords and spears delight in the dire ruin of mad savage fight. Stay, furious contests and avenging strife, whose works with woe embitter human life, to lovely Venus and to Bacchus yield, to Ceres give the weapons of the field. Encourage peace, to gentle works inclined, and give abundance with benignant mind. And so it is. And the thing we see and notice right away about this specific hymn to Ares or Mars is that instead of being a call for the gifts of Ares, there is a recognition of his power and strength, but the request is to step away from the battle and into the field. It's a request to be tempted and soothed by Venus and Bacchus. Austin Coppock teaches in his FOA program with very playful and morbid curiosity that this is a "don't hurt me, bro" invocation, a prayer that both acknowledges but does not suppress the role Ares plays in the cosmos. It simply requests that it utilizes its might for more constructive gains by turning the weapons into tools to use in matters of work, while also being rewarded by the affections of Venus and the banter and camaraderie with Bacchus. If I were going to add to our invocation of Mars for recent times, I may at the end offer something like, "As we march in the streets for no kings, Mars, join us with your strength and dignity." And I'm curious, what would you add to the end of this invocation to the god of war in order to utilize the energy in the climate of today's political, spiritual field or inside of your own life? Please let me know. Because the aggression of Mars is more than just bloodthirsty. It's the strength and endurance that we use to build anything meaningful in our lives. No matter your work, we all utilize the perseverance of Mars to deal with difficulties. We utilize the strife of Mars to achieve our goals. No matter if you're doing deadlifts or yoga, it's the energy of Mars that we use to build our muscles and sculpt our bodies. And with that, we acknowledge Mars's might and Mars's power within us, and that we hope to channel it and use it for the works of good to improve the lives of ourselves and the lives of everyone around us. The tarot card for the day is number 12, the Hanged Man. The Hanged Man is here to remind us of the sacrifice that we need to make in order to reach newfound places of spiritual connection. That it's the tangible and physical things of the world that distract us from the inner work. Because I grew up in a Christian context, the word sacrifice can be heavy and burdensome, but it can be as simple as the act of meditation. Meditation, especially in today's Western context, can definitely fill the role of a sacrifice because we are setting aside a piece of time, the most valuable asset that we all have, for the purpose of reflection and self acknowledgement. On the outside, meditation can look like a luxury, and having a certain amount of financial cushion can make it easier to find time to meditate, and especially a comfortable container to do it in. However, if you're challenging yourself to truly grow, then you take note of the things that distract your mind from peace. The thoughts that arise during meditation are a reflection of the self and should be reflected upon. Reflection is a good word for the Hanged Man because the card holds the signification of the water element. Reflection in water only occurs when it is perfectly still, and in that stillness, do we not only get a mirror like reflection, but the sediment of the water filters itself to the bottom of the surface, and the water itself will become clear. So, simultaneously, this becomes a metaphor for the goal and act of meditation itself. By becoming still, we only receive a clear reflection of self, but also the clarity of mind to perceive it. It's only accomplished through sacrificing time normally dedicated to doing or being in the rest of the world. Today's image, which you can find in the written version of the episode on Patreon, is given to us from the Light Seers Tarot. And to give the maker their credit and due, we will now read from the booklet that accompanies this deck. It reads as follows. Light Seer, surrendering to the will of the cosmos, an intentional pause, reflection, letting go, embracing the new, realigning with your heart and purpose, new wisdom found, spiritual teachings, sacrifice, enlightenment. Shadow Seer, stagnation, self sabotage, holding on to something that is meant for you, that isn't meant for you, holding on to something that isn't meant for you, stubbornness, a tenacity to be a martyr. Flow with it. Divine wisdom spills forth in moments of deep flow, and the Hanged Man is offering you the chance to look at something from a completely different perspective. When you let go of that thing that's got you stuck, you will make space for new insights and vantages to shift into place. Open your heart to the bigger plan, and you'll inadvertently tap into a whole new framework from which to see the world. Know that your path and your dream may look unfamiliar to you after you relinquish the need to be in direct, to need to direct the outcomes. Surrender to the will of the cosmos and realign your life with its sacred patterns. The universe already knows which life-altering lesson is the key to your happiness, and your higher self has so much wisdom for you when you intentionally pause to listen. And one of the things I like about this deck is that it offers a mantra with every single card, or yeah, like a more concise sentence to reflect on. And so the mantra for the Hanged Man says, or I guess it's more like an affirmation. Um, Regardless, It says, I lean into my inner world of limitless miracles, surrendering to the divine will of the cosmos. I lean into my inner world of limitless miracles, surrendering to the divine will of the cosmos. As for the astrology for today, the sun makes its exact sextile to Pluto only a few hours after the conjunction to Saturn. This may indicate the first real growth of this year's conjunction with Pluto on January 23rd. The first story that comes to mind from that day, January 23rd of 2026, was the economic blackout or boycott or citywide strike that happened in Minneapolis, Minnesota. This was a community unifying against the actions of ICE, including the killing of Renee Good, which then was bookended the next day by ICE agents killing Alex Peretti. There are already too many names of people and families that are being devastated by the elected officials of this current administration. The images of Renee Good and Alex Peretti definitely fall into the heavier and more burdened idea of sacrifice. May their efforts and deeds be remembered more than their deaths themselves. Because both were acting from a place of service and self-sacrifice for their neighbors and community without truly knowing the price they would inevitably pay. And let's take a second to take a deep breath in and let it out. And I just want you to know that I don't uh plan the cards that I draw. It just yeah, it just seems it's just so fitting that that's actually like the major news story, and it's just so reflective of the Hanged Man itself. It's amazing how the astrology and tarot will play together like that. And we have the No Kings, another No Kings protest coming up this Saturday. And so I feel like maybe not specifically today, but probably this energy of the Sun, Saturn, Neptune stewing together in Aries, and then the Sun making that sextile to Pluto. I'm sure the No Kings protest will carry that energy. Hopefully, no other events or atrocities specifically along the line of Renee Good and Alex Peretti. I mean, so many people's lives have already been uprooted and sacrificed through just ice alone, not even to mention the constant police brutality that already exists. And I guess I just need to mention that like um one of the things that I kind of worry about with the media surrounding ICE and the energy surrounding the ICE agents is that it almost creates, like, by having this seemingly more militaristic wing of federal agents committing these very obvious aggressions against people's rights and having them brought to the forefront of the media, I almost feel like it lessens or creates a an acceptance of the police brutality that's already been persistent for an extremely long time, especially in the communities, in the people of color communities and the minority communities, and how they already deal with this similar style of violence and have for a long time. I mean, there was an estimated 1,500 police involved shootings and killings in 2025, and we mostly got coverage about ICE last summer. So I just want to contextualize that. If you can't tell, this is a This isn't your middle of the road running astrology podcast. So, just to make that clear. And we're going to take another breath. Deep breath in, deep breath out. So, some other things that we track in our almanac and that I'll be offering insights for here on the podcast is here at Selene's Gateway, we track the energy tides of the day, which we have a table for in the almanac, which you can find on the Patreon, and it's free to download. This is crafted by watching the moon's pull on the oceanic tides each day, and these are reflected in an astrological chart each day by pointing to when the moon is rising in the east, culminating overhead, setting in the west, and lower culminating below our feet. And this is something that has been tracked for hundreds and hundreds of years of like utilizing knowing where the moon and how it affects the tides of the ocean. Like this is really, really old astronomy, and we're speaking about it in the same way as like how it pulls on our personal energies as well. And so today's high tide energy started at around midnight 30. The low tide uh, will come around 8 a.m. And low tide in this context is a little misleading um, because these positions actually indicate like the low tide is when the tide is out from the shore, but it's actually when the moon is exerting its strongest force of gravity on the earth itself and pulling the ocean to it. And then the high tide is actually the climax of the release of that energy. And so that's what these times signify. So we would call the midnight 30 time a release or rushing of energy, which may have made it hard to sleep at night. And then the low tide's going to come in around 8 a.m. And this means that like the energy is going to be condensing. And so it may feel like harder to move in the direction that you want to go. Imagine paddling a boat, paddling a canoe while the in the opposite direction that the tide is being pulled, or like trying to paddle a canoe up a river instead of down the stream. Like you're fighting against it can create the feeling of fighting against the direction that the energy is going, which is why it's really important to feel that subtle body, the subtle energy body. Then the next high tide, so midnight 30 was the high tide, 8 a.m. is the low tide. The next high tide for the day is at 11:20 a.m. And then the next low tide after that is at 9:33 p.m. And then the high tide will happen again after midnight. Um, and so that's the flow. There's roughly 3 to 5 tides within a 24-hour period. So please report back about how those times were experienced for you. And once again, this is about where you are, so you don't have to convert these times to Eastern or Pacific because it's about the moon's relationship to you. And so it may be 11:20 on the East Coast, and that's 11:20 a.m. is when the East Coast is going to feel it. And then because of the Earth's rotation, uh, the West Coast will also feel that same version of the energy at 11:20 a.m. their time. And so you don't even have to do any conversions or anything like that. And then finally, we also track the shadow hours for each day at Selene's Almanac. You can find out more about what these shadow hours are, and you can on the almanac itself. Once again, free for download. Today's Rahu hour is during 4:17 p.m. till 5:48 p.m. And then after sundown, it will be Saturn night with Rahu hour at 10:19 p.m. till 11:47 p.m. And those, once again, are for your time zone because all of these times and hours are based on uh, the hours of the day as you're experiencing sunrise because these times aren't on a 24-hour clock when we're trying to synchronize something happening across time zones. These times are based on the light you're experiencing in the moment. And so it's 7:05 sunrise on the East Coast and 7:05 sunrise on the West Coast, roughly speaking, with just like minor minute differentials. And then so then Rahu hour will also start at 4:17 p.m. your time wherever you are and end at 5:48 p.m. your time wherever you are. And so with all of that said, we're going to end just as we had began, completing our circle for the day. And so Saturn, please give us the serenity to know what we cannot change, the courage to change what we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. May the fire inside guide you. You've been listening to Selene's Gateway Morning Edition. You can find my almanac at Patreon at Selene's Gateway. You can schedule a tarot or astrology reading from me at selenesgateway.com. And on social media, I'm known as the Esoteric Butcher.